Good morning. My name is Carol Fowler, and I'm the Director of Personnel Services for the Archdiocese of Chicago. It is a privilege to be invited to share with you some of my thoughts on human resource management at the diocesan level. Agencies, offices, and staff of my department are responsible for all human resource functions in the Archdiocese for clergy, religious, and lay staff. The functions we support include recruitment and placement, policy development, compensation, performance review, and ongoing formation. Most of our time is spent assisting pastors of parishes, principals of schools, and other managers and supervisors with their human resource needs. Many of their problems are related to legal issues, policy compliance, and conflict or tensions between people at the local level. We encourage pastors to contact us when these problems arise. A primary issue for the Church in the United States is that of personnel management at all levels. I was asked to address the topic of human resources management at the diocesan level, which is intricately connected to HR at the parish and school level. Our parishes and schools typically do not have HR expertise and need to rely on the HR competence that exists at the diocesan level. I often hear things like, "We don't need personnel policies and best practices. We're a family here at St. Mary Parish. We are about the mission of the Church. We are ministers, not employees." Even the word employee has negative connotations for many in church ministry. My response is to remind people that the first word associated with family is dysfunctional. Treating staff as family is not a model that fosters excellence in mission. You can still have a faith-based community which fosters good human relationships and mutual care while implementing standard human resource policies that are equitable and just. In the Archdiocese of Chicago, there are some human resource processes that we think are working well, and perhaps they'll be helpful to others. For example, we have Archdiocesan-wide personnel policies that are standard for all parishes, schools, and agencies. We have a standardized payroll system, and our benefits programs are centralized, which is financially effective. We have compensation policies and programs for all school and ministerial functions at the local level. We provide comprehensive immigration legal services for lay, religious, and clergy who serve in the Archdiocese. We also have a staff attorney who has expertise in employment law. We provide ongoing formation programs for clergy and all parish ministry staffs. We have a process for criminal background checks with central support and decision-making. We have completed background checks now for 15,000 clergy and employees. We have a performance review system for all priests that is managed by an office in my department. We also provide performance management tools for all staff of parishes, schools, and agencies. We have a centralized placement system for priests and placement assistance for other parish ministers. We are involved in a long-term anti-racism project which is helping us deal with institutionalized racism that might be affecting our workplace. Frederick Gluck recently wrote 2 articles for America Magazine that were both challenging and insightful. One was Crisis Management in the Church, and the other article was, Can the Church Learn from Walmart? While the conclusions may not be practical for implementation in the near future, the insights on professional human resource management were right on target. Governance and accountability rely on having all of the functions of a comprehensive personnel system in place. Professional human resource management has often been regarded as a transactional function with responsibility for data and administration. In corporate America, HR management is a strategic partner in accomplishing the mission of the organization. The chief personnel officer of that organization has a role in the strategic decision-making process and sits at the table with other key decision makers, such as the CEO, chief operating officer, and chief financial officer. This understanding of the role of personnel management is also taking hold in church human resources. A voluntary organization with a great deal of influence at the national level is the National Association of Church Personnel Administrators, also known as NACPA. This organization has credibility and influence in all human resource matters for church personnel. They are currently disseminating a process for each diocese, religious institution, parish, or school to evaluate their HR functions based on a series of benchmarks or best practices. Participation in these self-audits could go a long way in establishing baseline best practices for all church employers and their staffs. NACPA can also provide assistance to each organization in implementing those excellent HR practices within their particular institutions. In the interest of transparency, I must also tell you that I am a past board member and past president of NACPA, so I am not a disinterested observer. These benchmarks, all intended to foster justice in the church workplace, include standards for hiring, workplace diversity, compensation and benefits, policy and legal compliance, performance management, accountability and discipline, internal communication, and dispute resolution processes. Codes of ethics, training, career development and formation, including spiritual formation, are addressed as well. Particular attention is given to ending church workplace relationships with integrity and justice. The church in the United States needs to do a much better job retaining excellent people who exercise leadership at all levels of church ministry. One of Frederick Gluck's comments was that the church is no longer attracting the best and the brightest. For lay people, there needs to be a compensation package that is adequate to raise and educate a family and to have a secure retirement. Our current compensation practices do not encourage retention of excellent staff. One of the difficulties of effective HR management in the church is the perception that clergy are outside of such management. In most dioceses, we do not require clergy to participate in performance reviews, receive ongoing education and formation, comply with HR policies, be subject to policies, or even have clear reporting relationships for purposes of accountability. For example, there are associate pastors who do not think they are accountable to their pastor for their parish ministry or to their Episcopal vicar. They will say they are only accountable to the bishop or archbishop. No organization can function effectively with so little ability to exercise authority at various levels of that organization. Human resources expertise is an absolute necessity at the diocesan level. The exercise of HR in the diocese needs to reflect the best of human resource practices in any workplace, but must also reflect that we are a church. Diocesan human resource management is an extension of the ministry of the diocesan bishop. There should be diocesan-wide policies for all parishes and schools. HR best practices need to be taught and supported by a human resource office at the diocesan level. All pastors and principals should know that excellence assistance is not only available at the diocesan level, but also required when difficult situations arise. Large dioceses should have HR professionals available in the field to be present to each institution on a regional basis for both support and compliance. When adequate structures and policies exist, the pastor and principal can focus on mission, which is their primary responsibility. Such diocesan structures can facilitate the transparency and governance about which there is so much discussion today. These diocesan structures can also address some of the morale issues that are negatively affecting clergy, religious, and lay staff members. Transparency fosters trust. Trust is paramount if we are to move beyond the current crisis of church leadership. I am personally very grateful that I have been entrusted to influence the implementation of good personnel management through my department and by my Archbishop. I am especially thankful that I do this work in the context of the church.